Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Riders Rep. This is Mike. Today's guest is my friend Shannon. Shannon is a co-rider on the Team Ascend Olympus track team. He's also my coach, and he's got a lot of really good stories, a lot of great experience, and a lot of value that he can add to your cycling and the show. So I want to introduce Shannon to you.
Hey everybody.
Shannon, how long have you been riding a bike?
Since I was 5, so I suppose that's close to 40 years.
Ooh, have you been racing the whole time, or when did you start
Yeah,
actually racing?
I started BMX racing at 5 years old. There was a track in Winthrop Harbor where I grew up.
Where's that?
Illinois.
Okay.
And so I had been racing BMX bikes since, very small.
5?
Yeah. Like
What bike did you have at 5 years old?
A Rampar.
So funny thing is, the last interview was with Scott Matchell, and Scott started racing at I think 8 years old, and Rampar was his first bike as well. Yeah,
so the cool
world.
thing at that time was V-bars. And I didn't have a V-bar, I just had a straight bar. And my brother actually hacksawed my straight bar and then made a V-bar and taped it.
So what happened? Did you get to ride it with the hacksaw and the tape?
Oh,
Did
right.
anybody get hurt?
No, I got it.
Nothing
So
like that?
my first race, my dad was parked near the finish line at this BMX track, and instead of going through the finish line, I had veered off. I was winning by a lot, and then I veered off and didn't cross the line, and went to him, and then some people, one person finished, and then he goes, go, and then I finished.
So
I
you
got
went
second
around
place.
the finish line, and then
So
back
I didn't
to the finish line?
go past, and then I go and go right to my parents, and they go. So I got second in my first race.
Funny story, Sebastian's first race. This was at Brian Piccolo Park at the inner loop at the track. And Sebastian was racing a couple other kids, and Sebastian pulled up the track and dove down on her like you do in a match sprint. And he was 3 years old. And he dove down, and Carlos Laborde was commentating, and he just started laughing. He thought it was so funny because Sebastian did that. Anyway, he gets all the way to the finish, and his mom had told him to skid going into the finish line. She kept, whatever you do when you finish, skid to the finish. So he skids, and he stops right before the finish line because he was so focused on his skid, and then he falls over. And the other kid that he was racing crossed the line first because he was so focused on his skid. And then everybody cheered for him, and he got back up and crossed the line.
When I was a freshman in high school, that's when I started track.
Okay, so you started track cycling and not just went into the road racing aspect of
Right,
it?
so
Track was
my
first?
dad raced track. One of the local riders asked if I was in the stock bike program, which is a grassroots program that they have there to...
Do they still do it?
Yeah, and it's a really strong program. So you just you go there on your regular road bike and race road bikes on the track. The Washington Park Velodrome has a Facebook page, I believe.
If you take a look on our Facebook page for the Riders Rep, I'll make sure to post a link to the beginners classes at that track and give you instructions on how to get in touch with anybody that you would need to in order to get started out there, because that's really cool. There are definitely needs to be more development programs out there for sure.
Yeah, it was, you look now at the riders that went through that program, and the junior program in Kenosha is outstanding, although our junior program is great too. With Steve Mlujeak has developed a lot of great riders. Your son being one of them. So so we've done really good at that.
So you got into the USCF then, started doing some
racing. And then I went to nationals that year. It was in Houston.
Okay.
And my teammate Tiffany Golwacki won nationals, and it was really awesome seeing somebody. And I've been chasing the jersey ever since 1991.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Well, for anybody who doesn't know Shannon, I'm going to share some photos of him, but Shannon is a big dude who's also pretty intimidating to ride with. If you can't look at him and see that he's a sprinter. I really don't know what else there is. I mean, you were definitely built and born to do this. When you got back on the bike in South Florida, did you start getting back focused into sprints, or were you focused on other aspects of the sport?
I'm afraid to admit.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. This is an exclusive.
I did a couple triathlons, getting back into it.
I remember the fastest mile. We had a time in South Florida. There was a guy named Cube.
Right.
They called him Cube. I think he was from Trinidad. And he was the owner of Coco's nightclub, I think was what it was, right?
Right.
And they would put up $1,000 for the fastest time of whoever can go 5 laps from a standing start, which is about a mile.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Alex Gill still has the record at 1 minute 56 seconds, which is
incredible.
Really, really
it's
fast.
doing a 110 kilo and then keep going.
Yeah,
it's
for
insane.
another 2 laps.
It's insane.
Yeah, so that's just
Big props
shows
to
some of the
him,
people
for sure.
down here for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's really great.
I think there were only 2 other people to go sub 2 minutes down here, which was Grant Potter and Sheldon Sorrell. I'm sure you've got to have like a best or a second best or something race story, like the most exciting race story you can think of. What would you say that would be?
Growing up in Kenosha, there's a lot of a good pedigree there in Kenosha. A lot of good riders come from there, and the guy that I love to hate, that beat me hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times.
I'd love to ask the guy's name. I don't know if you want to
Robbie
say
Ventura.
It. Okay, Robbie Ventura. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody should know that name. If you don't, look it up for sure.
You know, he was by far the fastest at that time. Before that, you know, Rick Dregney was very fast there. There was some overlap there when Robbie was very young, but there was a day I beat Robbie twice. He and Kenny LeBay were there, which he was riding for Postal at that time.
Okay.
With
Ventura was.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the Postal kit and everything, and
was it a sprint or was it a mass start race?
It was, you know, like I think it may have been a sprint, but not a match sprint. So it was, you know, a regular. It was actually in Northbrook, so a Thursday night race, and so Kenny let him out, and I beat him. I beat both of them. So, and it just was very few and far between. So that's definitely a high point. Even though it's just a regular night, and he's just, you know, so explosive like you are. But yeah, he was.
But
that
was your
yeah. I mean,
that
was a great.
inspiration.
That was a great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great great ride.
My standout race for watching Shannon race was last year at the Masters National Track Championships. Shannon was in the run for 5th through 8th place in the match sprints, and everybody got lined up at the start, and Shannon sat on the front for the entire race and ramped up the pace the entire time. And I sat there, like, couldn't watch, kind of fingers through the eyes thing, and I watched you drag race 4 of the fastest guys in the country and just drag them around for the entire 3 laps, and they couldn't come around. That was awesome.
It was great. I mean, Ken Lowe, which is one of the fastest guys in the country every year in and year out, and you know, coached by Lee Povey, and they've by far the best team in the country. I was on the top position, and you don't want to be in the back in the 5th through 8th because you just don't have a lot of time to pass, and you don't want to have to pass 3 people. So I got pushed really hard, and I said, push me as hard as you can, and I just did a kilo start, and we were just elbow, and I just pinched him down, and it was like, oh man, sorry, Ken.
I think I have the video somewhere. I've got the video of that
I
somewhere.
did apologize to him already. I mean, it was like, oh man. So I really shut him down there. It was he probably had to put the brakes on at the very end, but
that's
you know, so I got in the front, and then I just kept ticking it up. So I was able to keep it rolling and
Sure.
keep
That was
'em-
awesome.
Keep them razored. So
If I have the video of that somewhere, I will post that video on our Facebook page,
Yeah, we
and
do.
I'll put a link to it here. It was just that was really, really impressive.
yeah, I was.
How's everything going? Getting ready for this
Yeah,
year?
it's
What are you
going,
thinking?
going well, and the funny thing is I just keep getting faster. You know, getting older, and like, when is that going to top out or whatever?
Let's
But-
hope not.
Yeah. But age is, you know, seeing everybody at Masters Nationals is just so inspiring to see these
80
older
plus
guys.
guys and
Yeah, and then like the 50s and the 60s, and those guys are going so fast, and it's very inspiring to keep working at it and keep getting faster. So, but yeah, I'm doing well. I'm refining the system, and
What's the biggest difference between training and racing today versus training and racing in 1991?
the gears were the biggest thing, yeah, for sure, and how that has driven the speed up. And you know, before you'd be going so slow, and then this explosion and getting the jump on somebody. You can still do that, but that game is over, and that speed, because what we're doing now, you know, national level guy, you know, in the elite or the seniors,
Yeah.
the seniors we're doing, and so it's a completely different game.
So, technology-wise, what is the biggest change in equipment other than gears since then?
Power meter for sure,
The power meter.
for sure.
Do you have a particular power meter that is your go-to power meter? I know you just got a new one.
Yeah.
But is there anything that
so
you've tried over the years that you just say is hands
I've
down
only
better?
had two types, power to max, and then I recently got an SRM. And the main reason was the fact that I had a mechanical and a fatal mechanistic. You know, I was on the kilo start line, and I broke the power meter, the power to max power meter. And what happened is that power meter is held on by a lock ring, and that lock ring became a little loose, and so there was some play in. Apparently, you know, in hindsight, I figured this out. There was some play in that, so it was a little sideways in the start, and I just ripped through those threads and just
Pull it apart.
blew it apart. And
So
then
that
thanks
brings
to
out a
you-
funny race story.
Right,
we
right,
talk
right.
about cool race stories.
Right,
So on the start line at the Kilo in Indy
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago in 2016,
Right.
Shannon blows up his crankset on the start. John Fraley, me, I think maybe Ken Dong might have been involved.
Right.
And we went and we tore apart your bike really quick, and we threw all of your stuff on my bike.
Yeah, thank
A
you.
bike that you've never ridden before. You
Right.
ended up doing a really good kilo time, considering you've never ridden the bike before.
Yeah.
Your warm up was all off because of what happened with your bike. I remember that was a
Yeah,
crazy
I
day.
thank you very much for that. That was very. You're always there to help and give up your bike for me. I appreciate that very much. So there's a couple things. My struggle with the going up in gears. John would bang his head against the wall and try to get me to keep going bigger, and I was fighting it the whole way. So sneaky as he may be, I was going to ride a 98, and he put on a 104 at Nationals and didn't tell me. So I rode a 104 inch gear for the Kilo. I don't know what my time was, but I got fifth that year. So yeah, John was trying to push me up in gear, and I was fighting the whole way. And you know, in training, and if I wasn't hitting marks, I would ride smaller gears, and he was just banging his head against the wall, trying to get me to do that. So, you know, I didn't worry about my bike. You guys were getting my bike ready. He puts on a 104.
You know, another funny thing John was really pushing, and I'm hearing more and more things about it over the past few months. If there's anybody that's watching this and has comments about shorter cranks, please share and comment. One of the things that I'm hearing people talk about these days is guys going down to 155, 160. 165 is still kind of somewhat as a standard, but there's a big trend of people using 108, 110, 12-inch gears and 155 cranks. It's so counterintuitive to what we've been taught growing up and coming through this, as when I started in 96 was a big gear. That was a huge gear when I used to ride 96. People would be like, that's huge.
Yeah, we used to ride 90-inch gears,
So it's just kind of interesting if anybody has any feedback on really short cranks. Well, we consider really short cranks, which are 155s. Please get in touch with me. Share your thoughts on that. The dogs are saying hello, so hello back to them. But anyway, not to interrupt, but I thought that would be this may be a cool opportunity to find out about that.
That argument's going to ever end.
The argument of which cranks are...
The crank length and stuff. Something I ran into when I was getting the SRM recently was an option like the Look crank had this triangular little insert thing.
For different size.
Yeah, and so you're able to twist that to get a different size. They only had the 170 to 175.
Okay.
If they would have had the 165 to 170, I would have definitely gotten that option, but they didn't. So I didn't choose that crank. But I guess that's going to be available in the future. What was that? I forgot the name of that crank. Available from SRM. But
I know there's a company that we do some work with, company that I'm involved with, Olympus Speedworks, and Olympus has been working on developing some shorter cranks. So there's a lot of cool new stuff coming out, but that's one of the new things because of the trends, and obviously because there's really limited manufacturing for anything like that. There's also limited manufacturing for the bigger size chain rings that people are going to these days. But there's really limited resources put towards these shorter cranks, and we're working with a couple people to do some testing and some demos to see really, is it faster? Is it faster for everybody? Is it faster for certain people? And trying to figure all of that out.
The tough part is having a power meter on, to get some decent data to really look at it, so...
Got to use a pedal-based power meter to figure that out, I would think.
Yeah.
I know Look Pedals is in process of coming out with a new power meter in conjunction with SRM.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that may be something cool. I've got some contacts at Look. I would really like to try to reach out to them and see about how that works. And maybe that's the power meter that we use to test out our theory on these crank arms. How many people do you coach right now?
So there's three now.
3. So you just kind of keep it a tight family, people that are friends, and
I had 4, and then you 5.
What is your favorite bike that you've ever had?
I have them now. I think the Serenity is the best track bike I've ever ridden, and I have a Colnago, which is I think is the best road bike I've ever ridden.
Which model Serenity and which model Colnago do you have?
Yeah, what is it called? Marvel?
The Marvel track bike?
Yeah, and what is that one called? Yeah, I forgot what model it was, yeah.
I've heard through the grapevine that you've got a nickname. I had to bring it up this way.
Sure.
But what is your nickname?
Bam Bam.
Why do they call you Bam Bam?
Well, it started, Eric Hernandez started that because...
Como debe ser.
He would help me with my maintenance stuff, and I was always breaking stuff. So at first it started out as being, I was just so frustrated with stuff breaking, and I would just my maintenance level was not good. So I was breaking things because of poor maintenance. But I've been really taking care of all my stuff very well now, and occasional, we'll break
something
stuff,
broken. Well, you did break those cranks.
Yeah.
And a frame last year, I think. Your
couple
Pinarello
frames,
last year.
Frames, so it's
So if Shannon has a hard time breaking it, it says a lot for the quality of the product.
I think so.
Any mentors that you really remember being very helpful towards you?
At first, it was Rick Dregney, which was the top guy in Kenosha, a national sprinter. Was going for Moscow Olympics and all that, and so he was really fast, really smooth guy, smooth rider, and I really looked up to him, and I tried to emulate him, and then I would probably say then and then John, what John had taught me, and how to sprint and how to apply power, how to train in cadence ranges, being very meticulous about where you're training, what work you're doing, and if you're in a wrong cadence range, then you're really not doing sprint training, or you're really doing something else. Yeah, you're working hard. You're really pushing
You're taxing
hard.
the wrong system.
And you're just not doing it smart. So I would. I would report to this group and be very detailed and look at my data, and that's how I learned. And then so I would take screenshots, and I would say, hey, I was this power through this cadence range, and that's really how I learned, and I became a better rider just understanding that,
Yeah.
and seeing where you're not applying power well. And it was vital. It changed how I sprint and how good I was.
Sure.
I was always like dreaming of being a low 11s guy, and it was just never happening. And
You're there now.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So.
If you had one piece of advice, one best piece of advice that you could give to a junior who's looking to get into sprint racing, or just somebody who's looking to develop their sprint speed, what would that be?
Well, you threw in the junior word. I think with the juniors, you're keeping it fun and keeping it lighter and more about technique stuff and less about like trying to crush them. But I've never coached a guy like John Luke, where I guess you would just kind of treat him as an adult, and
At this stage,
so,
for sure.
That's a different story than something like our kids that are younger. But as a kind of a blanket statement for a lot of new riders is just enjoying the process.
Sure.
Getting to learn the process and enjoying the process, and every day of training and really trying to battle yourself and enjoy day in and day out, training day in and day out.
I had a coach a few years ago. His name was Brandon Davis, Wattage Cottage Coaching in North Carolina. And at that point, I was having a hard time. I was having some heart trouble. I was having family trouble. There was all kinds of stuff. And Brandon used an expression with me, and he said, you can't hate your way through training. Yeah, you can get to a certain level just going through the motions,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically what that was, but really you have to enjoy the process.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to enjoy the being sore and the deprivation of whatever it may take to get you to that level.
And get the joy out of it day in and day out, instead of having it all, on
Riding
results.
on the race day.
Mm.
What do you think would be a good start to improving things in the local community from within?
Locally, you mean us? You mean South Florida?
Locally South Florida, or locally in whatever track or road race or triathlon or whatever you guys are riding. Do you have any advice or any thoughts that could potentially improve other cycling communities that could be transferred?
I think every track probably runs into very similar issues, that the numbers are low. I think that embracing the riders that are there is where the win is. We're trying to pull road riders, and we spent years trying to lure all these new riders into the track, and I think we'd forgotten about that core group, and just for we don't have any racing this year, so we're worried about all the people we don't have. Let's embrace the people that we do have. And then when you have, we talked about Alex before, you got a guy like Alex Gill, and that is so fast and strong, and you have him out racing, and he influences people and brings people. But even him, I mean, he really tried. He tried pulling people from FIU before. He's got a lot of friends on the road. It's difficult, but
sure.
Just go away from that and not worry about that, and just and just kind of
make it an enjoyable experience for the people who are
that are
coming
there.
out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it was really nice when for our track, John Worcester would come out and he would do the announcing. He contributed a lot. Steve Mlujeak with Top Step Coaching, bringing out the kids. That was really good. I think things changed a lot down here when Carlos Laborde passed away. Right. Carlos was really
it's a
big
huge loss
down here. So interesting. Yeah, one of the big purposes of this show is to try to influence people to get up and make a change in the cycling community, to get people out that may not have tried different things. So I found the past couple people I've spoken with have been BMX guys and started in BMX. So maybe there's something that makes one of you guys want to get into BMX that you're hearing from Shannon or from one of the other guests. Maybe there's something that makes you want to get into track cycling. I can't imagine Shannon's excitement for triathlon is going to get you started in that, but you just never know. You've been racing for a long time. What is the worst crash you've ever had?
It was a week or two before Senior Nationals, USCF. And we were in Kenosha, and we were in a missing out, and we were bunched up. Robbie Ventura, puts a little bit of gas on. And
for those of you who don't know what a missing out is probably one of the more sketchy races on the track. Right. The way missing out works is it's a mass start race, and the last person to cross the line each time around gets pulled. Sometimes they do it every 2 laps, but the last person to cross the line is eliminated, and then it comes down to 3 final riders at the end who do basically a 3-up sprint.
Yeah, so it was fairly early in the race, and a guy was above me, and then he just decided to come down, and I wasn't able to go any farther down because there was somebody there, and he just took my front wheel out, and I went down, and I took out 2 of the top sprinters in the country that were going to nationals like 2 weeks later. Both Swifty and Jason Garner.
Oh, wow. Some old names.
Yeah.
Paul Swift is still around. I talk to him regularly.
Yeah.
He actually did a fit on my bike last year.
Oh, really?
Paul Swift of bikefit.com is, I believe, the company that he's doing. And he's got a couple of really cool new projects going on.
So Betcher took me out, and then I took those 2 guys out, and I think one other guy. And then the sad story, the very, very saddest thing.
Do we need tissues?
Yes. So this is the first time riding a new disc on that race.
Oh.
So I had the Russian disc, the one with the 6666 thing, the fluid disc, the super light, the hollow thing, the tension disc.
That's heartbreaking. Did you trash it?
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks when you break your equipment on the first ride.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, did you get hurt?
Yeah, I was skinned up all the way up my right side for sure, hole in my hand and the whole deal.
Well, did it take?
So that was it was an equipment hurt, and it was a skin hurt.
I always ask people, and especially a coach, what is in your opinion, the most effective interval or workout that somebody can do to improve their overall speed?
Improve overall speed. Well, I think to answer this from a sprinter's perspective, I think most sprinters gain a lot from training as a kilo rider. Some pure sprinters like yourself and like Gus and like John Fraley, they you evaluate them and you coach them into a way of doing pure sprinter things. But the lot of us, I think, if you were to train as doing kilo stuff as well as some of the top end speed, top end cadence work while sprinting, but I think that kilo is vital, and I think I've gotten a lot of good response from that, from myself and from some of the people that I coach. So an interval that a broken kilo, essentially, for a lot of people out there that.
So what's a broken kilo?
So a kilo, you can't keep repeating kilos. So what you're able to do, and what we like to do, is to do a standing start, and then get to max cadence, and then float, and then for 20 seconds, and then finish hard for 20 seconds. So going up to a cadence of 130 from a standing start. And then floating down to 120 and then holding 120, I think.
So floating, just basically dropping 10 RPMs.
10
over the
RPMs
20
within
second
20
period.
seconds, and then kicking it again and holding 120. That's really difficult to do, and it's challenging. You're really tired, and getting people ready to do that work is a lot of work, and trying to get people trained to even do kind of what I call a higher level
Sure.
maneuver. But if we can get the athlete to that level and start doing that work,
Helps.
it's going to be a big.
I could tell you from doing that kilo work myself,
Mm-hmm.
not only do I have a hard time keeping that speed, I have a hard time keeping my lunch.
Oh, right.
That's a really, really hard one to
Yeah,
do
some
without
Yeah.
throwing up.
Yeah.
That was definitely a hard one.
Yeah, luckily I don't have that problem, that GI problem. Some people just have that tendency.
Sure. Thank you so much for watching. That'll finish the interview with Shannon.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time with me. Please subscribe to our page, share with your friends, comment below. We're really excited to bring this to you. And if you have any other information you want to share, or you want to be a part of this show as well, you can send an email to RidersRepChannel@gmail.com. Have a great day. Thanks, guys.